Hello everyone, this is Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to make this ruffle flower coaster. It has a double ruffle and these neat leaves that poke out from the sides. It's a perfect size for your basic coffee cup or wine glass, or maybe just a glass of iced tea. They're great for party favors, for spring parties, and then you could use them as a place setting by maybe putting their name in here, and then your guests can take it home and keep it as a reminder of your fun party. Now remember, this is a free crochet pattern on my blog, and you can find that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. What you're going to need to make this ruffle spring flower coaster is some worsted weight number 4 yarns. I've chosen to use these 4 colors. I'm going to do the center of my flower where this one is brown. I'm going to do it in this pretty yellow. And then I'm going to do the 2 ruffles in purple and pink. And then I'm going to do this leaf part in this bright green. Now I chose to use worsted weight number 4 yarns. These are all Red Heart Super Savers, and you can use any worsted weight number 4 yarn that you want to. You can also make this in cotton yarn if you would rather. We're going to be stitching today with our H hook, and the H hook is an H8, which is a 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. You're also going to need a needle for weaving in your ends and also attaching this this leaf on the back of the flower. And then of course you'll need your pair of scissors. We're going to be starting from the center of our flower, working our way out, and then we'll do the ruffles, and then lastly we'll do the leaf section. So I'm starting with the color I chose for the center of my flower, which is the yellow. I'm going to make a slip knot, and then I'm going to chain 5. I'm going to stitch 9 double crochets in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. These first 3 chains will count as 1 double crochet, and then we'll stitch 9 double crochets in this 4th chain so that we'll have a total of 10. Yarn over, go in that 4th chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2 loops. So now we have 2 because our chain 3 counted as our first double crochet, and then we stitched a double crochet. So now we're going to stitch 8 more double crochets in this same chain. Alright, let's see how many we have. Here's our chain 3, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We need 2 more. 9 and 10. So we have 10 double crochets, counting our chain 3, and we're going to join to the top of the chain 3 with a slip stitch. So we put our hook in, yarn over, pull that loop through, and then pull that loop through the loop that's already on our hook, and then we're going to chain 3. That's row 1. Don't worry if you have a little hole in the center. We're going to use the tail of our yarn and fix that when we're finished. For round 2, or row 2, we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in each of the double crochets around. We've chained 3, so we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3. And then we'll stitch 2 double crochets in each of the double crochets around. Now your coaster should be nice and flat, and if it's curling up on you or bunching up, then you're probably stitching your stitches too tightly. Make sure it lays nice and flat. Alrighty, almost around. Two, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and I need 2 more in my last double crochet. 1, 2. I'm going to join to the top of this chain 3 with a slip stitch and chain 3. And this is how it should look after row 2. Alright, for row 3, we have our chain 3, so we're going to go ahead and stitch 1 double crochet in that same stitch as our chain 3. We're going to stitch 1 double crochet in the next double crochet, and then we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the next. And so the way this row will work is we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in the next double crochet and 2 double crochets in the next one. I call that 1 and 2. One double crochet and then 2 double crochets. And we had 10 double crochets in our first row, and then we have 20 in the second row, and in the third row we're going to have 30 double crochets. So I'm continuing around, stitching 2 double crochets and 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, oops, got a little stringy there, we'll do that one over, there we go, one and 2. One more set of 2 double crochets and 1 double crochet. And 1 double crochet in the last. We'll join to the top of our chain 3. But we're not going to chain 3 because on row 4 we're going to be changing colors. And this is how it should look after row 3. For row 4, we're going to be adding our first ruffle. And I'm going to be using the pink, so I'm going to go ahead and cut off my yellow. We're finished with the center color now. Before I join in my pink yarn, I want to explain to you how the ruffles are going to work. We're going to be stitching a row in the front loops, and we're also going to be stitching a row in the back loops. And that's how we get those 2 rows of ruffles that you see here. This yellow one is stitched on the front loops, and this pink one is stitched on the back loops of the same stitch. Alright, so let me show you how we're going to do that. We're going to go ahead and join in our pink yarn. Snug that down, and we're going to chain 3. Alright, so we're going to be stitching the pink row in the front loops. When you look at your work, the front loops are the loops of the top of the stitch that is facing me or you. The back loops are the back loops, the loops that are facing away from you. So we're going to be stitching in the front loops for this row. And the way we stitch the ruffle, we already have our chain 3, so we're going to stitch another double crochet working in the front loop only of that first stitch. And then we're going to chain 1. And the way this row will work, in each of these front loops of each double crochet, we're going to stitch 2 double crochets and a chain 1. So we'll go to the next one. There's 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and chain 1. And we'll repeat this on every double crochet, stitching in the front loops all the way around. So I'm going in the front loop only, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and chain 1. Front loop only, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, and chain 1. And we'll repeat this all the way around our coaster. And you can already see that the ruffle portion is already ruffling up. And that's exactly what it should be doing. Front loop of our double crochet, stitching 2 double crochets and a chain 1. Looks like I've got a little bit of a knot. Hopefully it won't be an issue. There we go. Just working around our coaster. See how it's ruffling up? So I'm going to continue on around, stitching 2 double crochets in a chain 1 in each of the front loops of row 3. So this is how it should look after that first row of ruffles. Isn't that pretty? And if you don't want a second row of ruffles, you don't have to put them on there. I just love having that second row of ruffles. All right, so when we get to the end and we do our last 2 double crochets, chain 1, we're going to join to the top of our chain 3, and we're going to go ahead and cut our yarn. And we'll tie that off. And I like to just make sure that that string is on the underneath side, just so it looks pretty and easier to weave in. All right, so now what I do is I sort of push up those petals like this, the ruffles, so that I can see the row of the back loops around. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go back over here where we started. We're going to grab that next color, or if you're using the same color, we're going to put our hook through the back loop. We're going to join our purple yarn in and chain 3. All right. Now we're going to place a double crochet in that same stitch as the chain 3 and then chain 1. And so what we'll do is I push those forward so I can see those back loop stitches, because that's where we're going to put our next row, so that we have 2 rows of ruffles. So we're going to place right in this next back loop of our next double crochet 2 double crochets and a chain 1. And we'll do this all the way around, just like we did the front loop ruffle. We'll do the back loop ruffle. The only difference is we're stitching in the back loops of that same row of stitches. So we're stitching 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1. And see how that's forming a second ruffle behind there? And you'll just, as you move around, I just push those ruffles forward so I can see what I'm doing and stitch those stitches. 2 double crochets, chain 1. There we go. 2 double crochets, chain 1. That out of the way there. And as I move around the edge of the ruffle, I push the front ruffle forward and continue stitching my ruffles. Two double crochets, chain 1 in each of the back loops, moving around, I should say working around the coaster, not the ruffles, the coaster. Alrighty. Make a chain 1, and you can see how pretty that is with that double ruffle. Alright, so I'm going to continue working around the edge of my coaster, working in my back loops, stitching 2 double crochets, chain 1 in each, whoops, there we go, in each of those back loops. We'll do this all the way around, and then when we get back to that chain 3 where we started, we'll tie off, we'll weave in our ends, and then I'll show you how to make those little leaves if you want to have them on your flower coaster. Now you don't have to, but I think they add a nice little touch. I finished my second row of ruffles. I'm going to join to the top of my chain 3 with a slip stitch. I'm going to cut my yarn, tie that off, and pull that string to the back. So now we have a lot of ends to tie in. Now the first thing I want to show you is how to fix that hole if you have one in the center. So let's turn it over to the back. Let's thread that beginning tail onto our needle. My hand under there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to stitch around this beginning row where we put our first double crochets and gather that in. And as we do it, we can gently close that hole. And once it's closed, I go up a stitch and go back the other way, just so I can weave that in, string on there, and make sure it's not going to come undone. Alrighty, and we'll clip that string. So now that's done. Now we have a few ends to tie in. So what we'll do, when I do these ruffle ones, I start with the one I ended on, and I make a few stitches so that I'm going down to the bottom where the stitches are made, and I try to make sure I stay in that color. so they don't accidentally stitch through and you can see the purple in the yellow or vice versa. Okay, so that's done. We'll clip that off. We'll do that to these two also, but I want to show you the second ruffle can be a little bit tricky because we've got in between to weave those in. So I kind of do it the same way as I did the purple one. Just make some stitches coming back down to the center and just make sure I stay in the pink so that it doesn't show through. We go back and forth, going through yarn and fibers to hold it nice and tight. And we'll do the same thing with this other one. Don't let that bother you because it's a little bit different than what you're used to doing. Cut that one a little short, so I'm going to take the end of my needle through, thread that, and then pull it through. And that's how you do those like that that are not on the bottom. I still need to weave in these two, but I want you to see how it looks. I'll hide that string and then I'll weave it in. And this is the way it looks by itself. And it is really, really pretty, but you might want to add these extra little leaves underneath so they poke out on the edges. So let's do one with those little leaves, and I'll show you how to add it on to the bottom just as soon as I weave in these ends. Alright, so let's make those leaves. We're going to begin with chaining 13 chains. So I'm starting with my slip knot. Chains. We're going to place a slip stitch in the second chain from the hook. Here's the first one, so we're just going to slip stitch in that second chain from the hook, and then we're going to slip stitch in the next two. So we have 3 slip stitches. Next, we're going to place 1 single crochet in the next 3 chains. So we'll go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both those loops so that we have 3 single crochets. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to place 1 double crochet in the next 3 chains. You can see the shape of the leaf forming. Alright, so we're going to place 1 single crochet in the next 2 single crochets. Take 2. We're going to place 1 single crochet in the next 2 chains. And now we have 1 chain left. And we're going to place 2 single crochets in that last chain. There we go. And now we're going to turn, and we're going to be working down what's called the opposite end, or the opposite side, or the other side of the chain. And we're going to repeat what we just did. So we'll place 2 single crochets in that first single crochet. We'll place 1 single crochet in the next 2. There we go. Now we're going to place 1 double crochet in the next 3. 1, 2, 3, we're going to place 1 single crochet in the next 3. 1, 2, 3, and then we'll place 1 slip stitch in the last 3. Alright, so there's one of our leaves. So this is how the leaf should look. We're going to go ahead and tie off, but we want to leave ourselves a little bit of yarn so we can sew it on to our coaster. So we'll tie that off. We'll go ahead and turn it over and weave in this one end. Just like that. Just making sure it's not going to come out. And then we need to make 2 more exactly like this, leaving a nice long tail so we can attach them to our coaster. I've made the 3 leaves, and the way we attach them is we'll turn our coaster over and we'll decide where we want them. I like to fan them out evenly, and then we'll just sew them on. So we'll thread our needle, and we'll just make some whip stitches, being careful to stay only in the backs of the stitches so that our green stitches don't show through on the front. There we go. And just make sure that's going to hold. There we go. There's one. We'll take the next one. Thread that on our needle. And do the same thing. Again, stitching through only the back stitches. There we go. And then I also go through the side of the previous leaf that I attached to kind of just help it hold. There we go. And now we're going to attach our last leaf. Again, thread that tail in. I go through stitches from the first leaf and the yellow of the center. You want to do both because you want it to stay, being very careful not to let your stitches show through on the front. There we go. And then I'll just weave that in and out so that it stays put. There we go, and that's how you make the leaves for the coaster. Here's my cup. Fits perfectly right down in there. And that's how simple it is to make my spring ruffle flower coaster.